All right, welcome today to Respondus 4 and Respondus Lockdown Browser information that we are presenting in the webinar series. So we're calling this IvyLearn Content Partners Series using Respondus tools with IvyLearn. My name is Ryan Falquist. I am Technical Specialist, one of the learning management software or system administrators of the college. So what was Blackboard administration now is turning into Canvas administration. So we're calling our Canvas environment IvyLearn. So you'll, with all this change that's going around in the college, we want to just reacquaint everybody with partners, vendors that we've been using, other software that we've been using for years with our LMS. So Respondus 4 and Respondus Lockdown Browser, and working with Anna Desmond, our senior account manager. We've had a great relationship with Respondus for years and years. I've been here with the college almost 9 years, and we've worked with Respondus all those 9 years, I want to say, and probably even a few more years. So we love Respondus, and it's just a great tool for both our instructors to use, but also our students as well. So we just wanted to take the better part of an hour here over the lunch hour to just talk to you and just kind of reacquaint you with Respondus. So any faculty that are out there that may be accustomed to using it in Blackboard and may have some hesitation to use it in IvyLearn, we just want to make sure everybody understands kind of the procedure as far as moving content over. You can obviously you can move over your test, quizzes, anything that you've created in Respondus, and you want to move them over. And then just kind of show you how Respondus Lockdown Browser works. Again, if you haven't already utilized that in your courses, you can utilize that, just another tool to help you with your students. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it off to Anna Desmond. So Anna, take it away.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the very kind introduction. So certainly I do want to walk you through the applications today, but before we get started, I definitely want to reassure you that I think your transition will be a very smooth transition. There are a couple of small nuances that certainly we'll cover today for both applications, but certainly don't hesitate to ask any questions as we walk through the process, and certainly I'm happy to assist in any way that I can. Now, without further ado, we will get started. In terms of the Respondus 4 application, Respondus 4, for those of you that have not used it in the past, it really is an assessment that was, or an application that was built to help you to create and manage your online assessments. The Lockdown Browser application is an application that is a secure browser, and the goal with this application is to prevent cheating during your online assessments. Now with Respondus 4, as I said, it's an exam authoring management tool, and it will help you to create those assessments for your online courses. It's an application that is client-facing. It can be used offline. It can be used in a Windows environment. When you are creating your content with Respondus 4, there's quite a bit of flexibility that you have with the application. You can import from Word files. You can import from other file formats. You can add the use of official publisher test banks. And you can even very seamlessly retrieve existing content from a previous LMS and then republish it to your IvyLearn environment. It is an application that will help you to create and edit a number of different types of questions from within the framework of templates that closely align with the question types within your LMS. And then we'll talk a little bit about tips and best practices as we walk through this application. Now, I do want to take you into my instance of Respondus 4. And you'll notice that with my particular instance, I've actually set my current personality to Blackboard. The first item that I do want to walk through is how to retrieve assessments that you already have published in your previous LMS, how to work with those assessments seamlessly, and then republish them to your IvyLearn environment. So in terms of looking at the current personality, my first step really, as I said, would be to retrieve an existing assessment. And the first step is to select the tab at the very top of the page titled Retrieval and Reports, then select the option to retrieve my questions. You'll see that my setting is just pulling information from my Blackboard server. Then it's just a matter of selecting the course that I want to retrieve my assessment from. So for my purposes, it'll be this Geography 101 course. And then I'll simply need to select the assessment that I'd like to retrieve and work with. Select a new name for the file. And now you can see, if you look in the top left-hand corner, that the file is titled Respondus IvyLearn file. Now for my purposes, then it's just a matter of selecting the option to edit. And where I mentioned before, in terms of the LMS and mirroring the question types for the LMS, you'll notice in the left-hand margin, there are a number of different question types. And you can see at the bottom of the screen that these are all of the questions for the assessment that I just retrieved from my Blackboard server. Now it's just a matter of navigating back to the Start tab. And then within that current personality, now I'm going to select the option for Canvas. I'm going to simply save this file, and we'll call this IvyLearn Canvas. And now this is just reopening that particular file within the framework of the Edit tab. Now it's established that the new template is for Canvas, and these are the question types that mirror the Canvas question types. And now it's just a matter of adding any additional content to this file that I may want to add, just in terms of, it's possible that I might want to reformat some of those questions. I might want to add some additional types of content, maybe another assessment. I'd like to merge that content with this content. So I'm simply going to start back from that Start tab. And now I'm going to add some additional information or test questions from an existing file. So the first tab or button that I'd like to work with today is this Import Questions. Now from this area, I have a number of different options. If you look at the type of file that's available to me, you can see I can select rich text files, plain text files, Microsoft Word docs, .x files, and tab, and delimited files as well. For my purposes, I'm going to navigate to a file that's sitting on my desktop, but I do want to show you one additional resource. If you were to select the option for Help, you can see that this takes you to an area where there's additional information on importing questions. So if you've never worked with the application before, there's a link here titled The Standard Format for Importing Documents. And this allows you to walk through a formatting guide. So if you're interested in maybe using a Word doc file that's sitting on your desktop and you're not sure about the formatting, this will easily walk you through how to correctly format the file. Now again, for our purposes, I'm simply going to select the file that's sitting on my desk. And for me, this is a .x file. The file name, I'm going to browse it from my desktop. And I'm going to be working with this Respondus sample text file or sample test file. I'm going to create the new document name, or I'm going to append the questions to the current document. For my purposes, I'm going to append the questions to the current document. And then I'm going to click Preview. And then I'm going to click the option for Finish. Once I navigate back to this Edit tab, you can see that there were additional questions that were added to the end of this file. Now, if I had an interest in perhaps maybe working with any of the questions, maybe I need to edit any of these questions, I can very easily look at the question itself from the question list below, or if I wanted to look at an expanded view of all of the questions, I would select this button here titled Expanded View, and I could easily work within this framework. It's just a larger space, allows me to see most of my questions together. If I wanted to preview this question, I can open it up, take a quick look. If I felt that I needed to edit the question, I just select the Edit option. It will place me back into the Edit tab and allow me to work with this particular question. Now, I do also want to show you or walk through the test bank network for those of you that have not used it before. So getting back to the Start tab, and again, we're still going to be working within the framework of this file. There's an option on this tab titled Test Bank Network. When I select this button, this will allow me to locate the publisher test bank that I work with. So this would be a registered test bank for a textbook that I'm using for this particular course. If I needed to search for a publisher test bank, I could very easily walk through this process. You can see the radio button automatically defaults to search for the test bank. When I click Next, this will take me to my Respondus site. It allows me to search by textbook title, author last name, keyword, publisher. For my purposes, it's going to be author's last name. And you can see I have a number of textbooks that I could select from. Now, if I needed to request this test bank, I'd simply click on this link, and there's a form that I'd be filling out. And once I've filled out this information, and this just is verifying that I have instructor rights to this textbook, it's going to send this information to the publisher. And then the publisher, once they verify I have access to this textbook, they'll send me back an email with the proper registration codes to link my textbook. That's just another quick way to get information or have access to information that you can use with your Respondus assessments. Now, for my purposes, I have a number of text banks that are already registered. So I'm simply going to select the questions, or rather, I'm sorry, I'll take a step back. I do want to show you that registration process as well. So if I had received that email back from the publisher, I have the option now to register this test bank. The publisher will be providing me with a file code, a password, and then I'll be inputting this information, and then I'll be linking that test bank. But once that test bank is linked, I'd be selecting my options. I'm going to use the currently open file. I'm going to select the text bank I plan to work with today. So for me, I'll select human biology. And then it's allowing me the option to select the chapter that I choose to pull my questions from. So for me, it's going to be chapter 7. And this test bank feature will allow me a number of different options. You'll notice at the bottom of the screen, I have the ability to look at how many test questions are available for this chapter. And there are 114 questions, so certainly I can select from a number of different items. You can see as I walk through this area, there's a way to manually select these assessment questions, but then there's also an automatic selection process I could walk through. I'll talk a little bit about the manual selection, then show you what that automatic process allows for as well. Now, when looking at these questions themselves, I do have the ability, by selecting this context menu, to preview any of the questions. I could add them to the end of my list, insert them to my list, or even flag items. So for my purposes, I'm looking at a number of different items. I'm looking at the question itself to see if it's something I'd like to use. But there's also this popularity index. And the popularity index indicates the popularity of that question amongst other instructors that are using the same test bank. So if this is a question that I'm comfortable with, I think I'd like to use, it's just a matter of selecting that question itself. I want to draw your attention to the flag, and as you can see, there's a warning symbol in this particular question. The flags, these flags are actually put in by faculty members that are using these test banks. So it could be that when you see a flag, and you open up the flag simply by clicking on it, you have an opportunity to look at why the flag has been put in the system. So perhaps it could be it's nonsensical wording, it should read, etc. Maybe it's just a question that students seem to have difficulty with, but that's just one more way to understand who's using the question and if there might be an issue with it, and it might be something that you choose to stay away from. So for my purposes, I might be coming through, taking a look at these questions. There might be a couple that I really like. And then once I've decided on the questions I'd like to use, I can also add those questions to the end of my list by simply selecting the button at the bottom of the page in the left-hand margin. And now these questions are being copied over to that file that I have open on that Edit tab. Now I also want to walk you through the automatic selection. So if you select the option for automatic, this will actually take the questions within that test bank and that chapter, and it will actually provide a description of the question type. So it will tell me how many multiple choice questions, how many true or false, or essay short answer, or matching questions I might have. So if I wanted to randomly select several items, I could just easily say, I'd like to select maybe 5 of these questions. And then I can also assign point values here for those questions. So maybe these questions might be 2 points. And maybe with short essays, I might prefer to use 1 question and maybe assign this 5 points.
Hey,
and
Anna,
then I can also add those.
Hey, Anna,
yes.
we had a question that came in, and I think I know the answer, but I'll let you do it. Can you pull from several chapters at one time?
You cannot. It is something that you'd have to pull chapter by chapter.
And then you always have the ability to randomize at the end, right, as you're building it up?
You do, absolutely.
Okay.
Because there's another tab within the application, and actually when I close this is going to allow me the option to look at the questions I just pulled from the test bank. I can either finish or I can continue, but we're going to finish at this point. But where you'd actually be setting those requirements for the randomization, you'll notice at the top of the screen here, there's this Settings tab. And you can see now that, again, because we are in the framework of Canvas at this point, this is going to mirror the settings that are available to you from within Canvas. So we can walk through question groups. You can add new sets of question groups. You can modify or delete them. You can walk through the number of the first question to be used in the set, the number of the last question, how many questions you should be using in the set, that should be randomly selected, and you can even enter point values here as well. And you can create additional sets when you're working with it. And there's also some other settings that you could work with. So when you're looking at the settings themselves, it will mirror what's available to you within the framework of the LMS. So if your preference is to work within the framework of Canvas to set these requirements, you certainly can, but you can also do it here while you're creating your assessment. So really, this is meant to give you more options, more flexibility in when you're working with the assessment, how you want to set it up. Now, I want to take you back to this edit area. I want to pull a couple questions, talk a little bit about the questions themselves. And actually, let me just pull something. Actually, we'll create one. That might be even nicer. Save this. I'm going to clear the form. And we'll just create a question. What type of dog is this? And the reason I actually use this particular question is I want to talk a little bit about the types of media that are available to you. So in terms of the media and the toolbars that you'll notice at the top of the screen, and again, more for those of you that have not used it in the past, you do have some nice options available to you. Certainly just a very basic toolbar originally, the ability to bold, italic, underline. But then you have some options when you're working with math and science, subscript, superscript. There's an equation editor that's embedded within the application. So if you're interested in working with equations, this is actually a design science equation editor. So for those of you that work in those disciplines, absolutely you can take advantage of building assessments or building your assessments with graphs, building your assessments with formulas as well. There's also the ability to add media. There's an HTML editor as well, should you require it. You can upload media files from computers. You can link to media files on a web server. For my purposes, I'm planning on uploading a media file from my computer. You can upload images, audio files, other type of files such as docx files, PDF files, and you can even reuse media files that have already been added to the project. But for my purposes, we'll just pull a picture of one of my dogs. If I wanted to preview this question, I absolutely could. And this is my little dog, Bridget. Are there any questions for me on the toolbar within Respondus or the question types themselves? For those of you that have used the application in the past, you'll notice that as I flip through the different question types, it actually takes the content that's sitting in the edit palette and really just reformats it to some degree for the different question types. So true, false, essay question. And it's really just meant to give you a starting or a place to start. If you're retooling this question, maybe to accommodate an essay question or some other type of question that you'd like to ask later within the assessment.
And I think we're good to go right now, Anna. If anybody does have any questions, just a reminder, you can type them in there to the question section here on go to. So go ahead and type in your question and I'll try to answer it, and if not, we can address it with Anna. So
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so moving right along, in terms of the assessment itself, once you have created and added the content that you choose to use with the assessment, the next logical step is really to talk a little bit more about the settings themselves. And I know we did that, we covered that very quickly just in terms of answering that question to randomization. But typically, when you're setting your requirements for your settings, usually the discussion does center around shuffling those questions, how to publish them, where that you can put your time limits in, allowing for multiple attempts, and then just walking through establishing your due dates, your lock dates, whether or not you require an access code or if you're filtering by IP. The next logical step from this point is really to publish those assessments. So the next step in terms of publishing, you have a couple of options. You can certainly preview any of your files. You can publish them directly to Canvas, but then you also have a print option. So I want to walk you through the print option first because this is a feature that sometimes faculty aren't aware exists. Instructors, in addition to publishing their assessments to Canvas, they can certainly also print their content. They can select the format, whether or not they would like for select the exam with an answer key only. They can even save their question as files. So if you're interested in saving those files to your desktop or even sending them to the printer, those are options that are available to you here within this print options area. If we were published directly to Canvas, very simple. You're simply selecting the option in the middle to publish to Canvas. Once you select this option, you have the ability to either publish to a single course or batch publish to multiple courses. Now the server profile here, this is something that Ryan and his group will be setting up for you. So this is something that you should be able to set this up or select this as an option for you. Then you have a next step, which allows you to just move through what type of an assessment you're going to be publishing, the server, and any other options. So if you want to apply question groups or apply settings, for my purposes, I'm going to be planning on publishing this assessment to English 101. Select Next. And now this is just walking through, making sure that all of my requirements are correct and that I have access to that server. And this usually takes a couple minutes. And once this has been done, I'll simply select the option to finish. You can see the publish has completed successfully. And then if I just quickly want to check this, I come back to my instance of Canvas, log in with my faculty level account, log into my course that I have instructor rights to, and my quizzes, and this is my IvyLearn Canvas file here. So very, very simple to publish. Now, I do want to walk back to the PowerPoint presentation and then just simply talk very briefly about a couple of items. So as you can see, when we walk through very quickly the Respondus 4 application, it is a very easy way to create your assessments for your online courses. The goal is really to save you time when you're working with those assessments. So using that import wizard, really walking through retrieving those assessments from the framework of Blackboard into Canvas, using some of the additional functionality with the test bank network, it can really be assistive in terms of creating your assessments and publishing them in a rather simple fashion. In terms of Respondus resources, I would encourage you to take advantage of the resources that are on our website. We have a number of videos that are topic specific and LMS specific, so they can very easily provide you with quick tutorials when you're walking through the Respondus application and how it should be used with Canvas. You can see that my contact information is here. Should you have any follow-up questions, I'm certainly happy to assist. Now, I also want to walk you through the Lockdown Browser application, and I'd like to walk through and talk a little bit about what Lockdown Browser is and how it's used within the framework of Canvas. Now, with Lockdown Browser, it is a custom browser. It was built to add security to your online testing. It is an application that was truly built for classroom and proctor types of environments, because the Lockdown Browser application prevents students from navigating to other resources while they're taking an assessment, and really relies on the proctor or the faculty member in the room to monitor any type of physical behavior. It is a rather nice integration with Canvas, very seamless, and most importantly, the dashboard when comparing the dashboard between your previous LMS and IvyLearn, it is almost identical. So it should really be very, very simple for you to work with. Now, in terms of the Lockdown Browser application, very important to remember that when your students are using this application, they're unable to copy, print, or paste their content. They cannot use other applications to capture screen content, so they won't be able to use programs like Snagit or Camtasia, and they can't navigate to other websites when their students are taking an assessment. And they certainly can't access any other type of an application, so they won't be able to use other instant messengers, Microsoft Word, or really any other type of browser. Now I want to show you from the instructor perspective how you'd be using the Lockdown Browser application. So the very first thing for me is just navigating back to, or logging back out, and I'm going to log in again, navigating to a course where I have rights to Lockdown Browser. So for my purposes, this is my Geography 101 course. And once the LTI for Canvas has been integrated, you'll notice in the bottom left-hand corner, there's now going to be a link for the Lockdown Browser dashboard. So again, you'll be navigating to your course, and once that integration component has been activated, it's going to be available to you here. And once this opens up, again, it looks exactly like your dashboard, just in terms of your previous LMS. So you'll have a list of all of your quizzes. You can see that next to every quiz, there's a context menu, and you'll have a column for Lockdown Browser. The second column is only visible for me here at Respondus. It's a separate application. Now the assessment that I plan on working with today is this Geography Quiz Week 2. So from a faculty level perspective, once I've selected the quiz I choose to work with, it's just a matter of selecting the option to modify my settings, and then adding the requirement for Lockdown Browser. For those of you that may have used Lockdown Browser a very long time ago or haven't used it at all, I do want to walk through some of the advanced settings that are available to you here. So you'll notice under password settings, there's an advanced area. The Lockdown Browser application, certainly you could either lock the student into the browser, but there's a really nice feature that we refer to as early exits. This allows a student to safely leave an assessment in the event that there's some type of an emergency. So perhaps maybe your students are testing in a room, the smoke alarm goes off, or maybe a student gets sick, and there's a legitimate reason why they may need to leave. I do want to show you what this feature is and how this would work from the student side. So I'm going to leave this option unchecked so that I can show you how it populates from the student. The next option allows students to take an assessment with an iPad. If that's something you're looking to support, this link will take you to an area on our website. It will allow you to walk through information about how to set the requirements. So it's a step-by-step walkthrough to get to this dashboard. But then it also provides you with some additional student-facing information that you can certainly put in a course syllabus or communicate to the student in terms of how it works and where to navigate to get the app from the iTunes store. You can also enable the use of a calculator on the toolbar. So if that's something that's of interest, you simply select this box and then select the type of calculator you plan to use. So for me, I plan on using a scientific calculator. And this last option allows you to enable printing from the toolbar. Printing from the toolbar is something that's used less frequently. You may have a situation if you have a student that might be possibly continuing ed, or maybe they travel for work and you're allowing a concession. It could be that you're allowing them to take an assessment remotely, but that they have to have a proctor in the room. If that's the case, you may allow for enabling a printing from the toolbar, and the requirement could be that the proctor has to sign it before the student returns it to you or mails it back to you. But that's one situation where you might use it. Once you've set your requirements, just a matter of clicking on Save and Close. And that's it. From the instructor's perspective, you'll see that that Week 2 quiz now has the requirement for Respondus Lockdown Browser, and it's showing up as required under the column. So very, very simple to use. Now, from the student's perspective, if you're a new user to the application, really important to understand that your institution has a unique link that is specific to your institution for the Lockdown Browser application. So students, if they're using it in BYOD situation, installing it to their own machines, you will need to provide them with that link. Or the other option is that you may have the Lockdown Browser application installed in lab computers already. So again, if you're giving it to the student for the first time, they're using it on their own personal device, you want to make sure you're providing them that with that unique link that's specific to your school. The iPad app is something that's available from iTunes. Now, this would be an example of what that link would look like. Now, when working from a faculty perspective, we always encourage, from a tips and best practices perspective, that you try the application yourself. So if you plan on working with Lockdown Browser, it is recommended practice that you install the client on your own personal device and try navigating to an assessment with a student level account. That way you become familiar with how it works for the student. In terms of choosing your settings for your assessments, very simple practice to walk through the application and just make sure that the settings that you are using really are specific to how you intend to push out that assessment and your preferences for that particular assessment. And as you'll remember, underneath that column for Lockdown Browser, you can always see once those settings have been saved that it shows up listed as required. And certainly preparing your students. It's a recommended practice that you provide the students with some information about what Lockdown Browser application is. On our website, we do have quite a bit of information available to you from a resource perspective. You'll notice that when you navigate to the Lockdown Browser page on our website, which is respondus.com, in the left-hand margin, there's a resource area. You'll notice that under this resource area, there's an option titled Information to Add to Your Syllabus. And this just walks through a brief explanation of what the application is. This particular syllabus information, it links to a short video, provides you with an area where you can add your link, and even links to a student quick start guide. There's some additional information, really just to set the tone for the student in terms of when they're taking an assessment online. Just some overview information. Make sure you're in a location that you won't be interrupted, turn off all your mobile devices, etc. There are a number of instructor resources that are also embedded within the application. So quick start guides. You'll notice that they are LMS specific. So very simple to walk through, select the proper one for Canvas. And also this is where that student quick start guide comes from, and they are also LMS specific. We always recommend that instructors provide a sample test for their students. And certainly this is my direct contact information, adesmond@respondus.com. There is one other thing that I do want to make sure I walk you through, and that's really launching the application from the student's perspective, because once they have downloaded that unique URL, you can see here, it's going to be something that's sitting on their desktop. You can see that this is my Canvas instance. And you'll see that the application actually just caught me because in our environment, we communicate internally through Skype. So before I'm allowed access to my Canvas instance, I do need to shut down any application that Lockdown Browser considers might be something I'm using to cheat. From the Canvas perspective, now it's just a matter of logging in with my instructor or faculty level account, student level account. And then just entering my password. Navigating to my course. So my user interface looks slightly different because now I'm taking this assessment from the student side. Selecting my quiz. And you can see that that geography quiz week 2 that we were working with now has a requirement for Respondus Lockdown Browser. I set almost all of my assessments up as multiple attempts, so now I'm just resuming this quiz. From the student's perspective, you can see the assessment opens up full screen. If I'm looking at the top left-hand margin, important to understand that the student can't navigate backwards or forwards. I'm running a student edition here, so if I need to check for a newer version, I certainly can, or zoom my text. There's a symbols palette that's available to me should I need it. A scientific calculator that my instructor allowed me to use during the assessment. You can see that the URL address field is completely stripped out. And also in the top right-hand corner, my ability to minimize as well as maximize has also been removed. Now, a couple of other things as well. When looking at the assessment, you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner or bottom left that I don't have access to a system application tray, so I can't access any other application from here. I can't use my right mouse click, which has been completely disabled, as well as all of my combination keystrokes. So I can't use my Shift, my Tab, my Alt keys, my function keys here to copy, print, paste, or get to any other application on my desktop. A couple of other things worth noting when you're looking at the assessment that I published. You can see it's got a number of different question types. It's got an image that's embedded in the question as well. So we do not alter the way you like to set up your assessments. It is entirely up to the instructor how they choose to wish with the application, and we don't change the framework of the learning management system. I do want to also show you if as a student I try to exit out of this assessment, you'll see that now I'm prompted with this dialog box, and this tells me do not close the browser until the exam is complete or your instructor will be notified. For my purposes, I do want to close this assessment, and this is what that early exits feature within the dashboard from the instructor side, this is what it allows the student to take advantage of if there's some type of an emergency. So for my purposes, it will be lost my internet connection. Now from the instructor side, looking back at that geography quiz that we set the requirement for, if a student in your class takes advantage of early exits, you'll notice that once you log back into that assessment, there'll be a number in the top right-hand corner, and that number will correlate to the number of students that took advantage of that early exit. Should you like some additional information, there's now an option for review early exits. And this just allows you to see what happened during the assessment, and you can see that for this session, I lost my internet connection. So the lockdown browser application from a student's perspective, very, very simple application to use. It is an application that certainly will allow you to add some additional security when your students are testing online. Now, as you can see, if you have used this application in the past, it is very, very similar to how it populates within your new IvyLearn system. If there are any other questions for me, either on Respondus 4 or the lockdown browser application, I'm certainly happy to answer questions now, or you're always welcome to contact me as your account manager at adesmond@respondus.com.
Alrighty. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today, and thank you to Anna. If there are any questions or anything that you can think of, please feel free to type them in to the question box there. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Anna again. We have a great relationship with her with Respondus, and they're very in tune to our needs and to our faculty needs. So their website is a great tool, so definitely recommend checking out their website if you do have any questions. I did have a question that came through earlier as far as finding where the Respondus 4.0, where you can find Respondus currently. So you can find Respondus in Blackboard, so under Click for Help. So the downloadable is there along with our password and everything like that. That all stays the same because you actually download the file and you have to put in our credentials and everything. So I am working on creating that into Canvas, so you'll see that in IvyLearn very soon as far as a section for Respondus and obviously all the information that goes along with Respondus. We're on a daily basis, we're putting in new information, so just be looking out for that. But you can still utilize the same information you can. And really it's on the administration side as far as us making sure that Canvas, or what we're calling IvyLearn, is available as an option so that you can still be utilizing it in Blackboard now, especially towards the end of the term, but also building it out for our IvyLearn environment as well. So I do not have any questions that I see coming through. So again, just wanted to say thank you. So thank you again to everybody for joining us today. Thank you to Anna for a wonderful presentation. And again, Respondus is a wonderful tool We love it. We love to advertise for it, and we love that you're interested in learning more about it. So if you do have any questions, again, you could always reach out to Anna directly, or you can reach out to really anybody as far as in your region on the online technology side, so OTCs, or you could always put in a ticket if you did have any issues with Respondus. So thank you so much for everybody for attending, and we'll go ahead and conclude this training session. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.